Film opens by showing a young man named Jesse who was running in the morning. Furthermore, it is said that Jesse had just been accepted to college, so at that time he said goodbye to his parents to leave town and go abroad to study. It turns out, Jesse comes from a poor family, and he can go to college because he gets a scholarship for his achievements as an athlete. At that time, Jesse's mother gave Jesse a very expensive suit, because his mother did not want Jesse to be looked down upon by his college friends. Jesse also told his mother that the suit was very expensive, and he preferred to use a cheaper suit. But Jesse's mother still wants her son to wear the expensive suit, because so far she has never given anything to Jesse, and this is one of her gifts. Therefore, the mother asked Jesse to accept the suit. After that, Jesse said goodbye to his father. One of Jesse's goals in college was because he wanted to be an athlete, but at that time, the culture of racism was still very high in America. Thus, black people are often underestimated. Jesse's father, who knows that people in the world often underestimate black people, so he also told Jesse to forget about his dream. But with full faith, Jesse held his father's hand and said that everything would change and he would prove that he could succeed. Seeing his son was so sure, at that time Jesse's father asked his son to fight, and he also hoped that Jesse could reach his goals. After that, the scene changes and it turns out that Jesse, who is still young, already has a daughter with his girlfriend, Ruth. They are both unmarried, but as a father, Jesse is fully responsible for taking care of his child. At that time, Jesse also said goodbye to his girlfriend and to his daughter. He apologized that he could not provide a lot of living, because after this he had to go to college. But Jesse promises that he will find a job to provide for his child. Then, after that, Jesse left with his best friend to go to the city where he studied. Jesse's best friend, Dave, also got the same scholarship as Jesse, so he can go to college, and Dave is also an athlete. Finally, Jesse and Dave's first day of college came. Because they both got athlete scholarships, every day the two of them are also required to do exercises. And sure enough, according to Jesse's father, on their first day of practice they were immediately put down by their white friends. Dave, who is temperamental, really wants to beat up those white people. But at that moment, Jesse immediately warned Dave not to act rashly. Dave wanted to beat them up, because they put him and Jesse down. However, Jesse still tried to restrain Dave, because he felt that he was very lucky to be able to get a scholarship to study in a place where rich people and white people lived. If they do strange things, then Jesse and Dave can be expelled from the campus. Jesse reminds Dave to stay humble until no one can put him down. Jesse, who apparently has a very fast running record, is called by a coach, Coach Larry. Without thinking, Jesse went straight to Coach Larry and the two of them chatted. Coach Larry told Jesse that based on Jesse's record, Coach Larry knew that Jesse had extraordinary running abilities. But sadly, that's not enough, because if Jesse wants to be an athlete, Jesse has to use his brain. In fact, it was during this time that Coach Larry looked down on and belittled Jesse. Larry thinks Jesse is someone who is very stupid and can't work. Larry also added a question, can Jesse work or not, and of course Jesse looked at him sharply and answered that he had been farming since the age of 6 to help his father. Hearing that, Larry knew that Jesse was a hard worker. Finally, Larry told Jesse that next year he could enter the Olympics as an athlete. Jesse was so surprised and he was so happy. Jesse thought that he might just take part in intercollegiate competitions, but in fact he will represent America to go to the Olympics in Berlin. Larry then gave Jesse conditions. If he really wanted to take part in the Olympics, then Jesse had to practice every day with Larry. After that conversation, Jesse finally started practicing with Coach Larry day by day. Jesse's daily activities aside from studying are practicing. But because he needed money to support his daughter, Jesse decided to find a job. Every night, Jesse works as a security guard for the shop. Because he had to work every day, it caused Jesse to sometimes not follow the training schedule that Coach Larry had scheduled. Until one day, Coach Larry thought Jesse was lazy, because he often didn't come to practice. At that time, Coach Larry also scolded Jesse and asked why Jesse had rarely practiced lately. Jesse apologizes to Coach Larry and reasons that he has to study in the morning and work at night. Because of this, Coach Larry became even more angry at Jesse for assuming that Jesse had forgotten his promise. In the past, when Jesse made a commitment to train with Coach Larry. Indeed, Jesse had promised and was able to practice every day with Coach Larry. According to Coach Larry, if Jesse was lazy like this, then he wouldn't be a champion. Jesse replied that he wasn't lazy and didn't want to practice anymore, but actually Jesse really wanted to practice every day. But what can be done? Jesse said that he had a baby girl and a girlfriend that he had to meet their needs. Hearing this, Larry was shocked because he did not know that Jesse had a baby girl. Larry could only remain silent and understand that Jesse rarely came to practice recently. A few days later, Larry suddenly called Jesse back into his office. At that time, suddenly Larry gave a card to Jesse, and of course Jesse asked what the function of the card was. Coach Larry explained that it was a card from the government that functioned to provide financial assistance to athletes, and the assistance that would be given was $60 per month. So starting tomorrow, Jesse doesn't have to work anymore, and there's no reason for him not to come to practice. It turns out that, secretly, Coach Larry arranges financial assistance for Jesse so that Jesse doesn't have to work hard to support his child and his girlfriend. Jesse immediately thanked his coach and he promised to practice hard every day. Then, came the day of the inter-university competition. The race was the preliminary stage for selection into the Olympics to represent America. At that time Jesse represented his university in 4 sports, including short distance running, long jump, and also running using barriers. At first, Jesse competed in sprint numbers at that time, so he was very nervous because all his opponents were white people, and at that time Jesse was the only black person. Everyone underestimates Jesse, except for Coach Larry. Finally, the race began. Unexpectedly, at that time Jesse won first place and he broke the world record. Larry was also very proud of Jesse because he managed to break the world record, until suddenly a referee said that Jesse would not break the world record. Of course Larry was very angry with the referee, because Larry had measured his own time and that time showed that Jesse had broken the world record. But that doesn't change anything, because the referee's decision cannot be changed. Despite being first place, Jesse did not break the world record. Jesse tapped Larry on the shoulder and tried to calm the coach down. He also promised in other numbers he would break the world record. And sure enough, true to his word, when Jesse did the long distance run, the long jump, and also the obstacle course, Jesse could break world records. After the race, while in the car, Larry told Jesse that he was very proud of Jesse because he could prove to the whole world that black people can also achieve and be successful. After Jesse managed to break the world record, all the media in America talked about his name, and immediately Jesse became famous. Everyone congratulates Jesse and he becomes the center of attention on his campus. Then, one night, Jesse attends a party with his friends. When Jesse was chatting casually with his friends, suddenly a woman named Quinn approached him. At that time Quinn knew that Jesse was a famous and great man, so Quinn asked Jesse to dance together, but Jesse refused the invitation because he didn't want to betray his girlfriend. However, Quinn instead argued that at that time Jesse's girlfriend was not there, and she asked Jesse to forget about his girlfriend. Even Quinn forces Jesse to dance with her. Unfortunately, Jesse, who at that time was forgetting himself and feeling like the greatest man there, finally complied with Quinn's invitation, and the two of them danced. A few days later, in the morning, Jesse was suddenly startled when he saw the news in the newspaper. As it turns out, someone had taken a portrait of him dancing with Quinn and it made headlines in the newspapers. Therefore, Jesse was afraid that his girlfriend would know the news. Jesse immediately tries to call his girlfriend, but Ruth's father picks up the phone and he tells Jesse not to call his daughter again. As it turns out, Ruth's father already knows the news about the affair. Jesse felt very sorry and guilty, so he kept thinking about Ruth's feelings and also his daughter. The next day, Jesse had to return to the race. In the race arena, Jesse's mind was confused and it was difficult to focus on the match, and sure enough, because Jesse was not focused, it was the first time he had lost. After the match was over, Larry approached Jesse and he already knew that the cause of Jesse's defeat was because he thought about his affair. At that time, Larry tries to advise Jesse. Coach Larry didn't want to sound like he was judging Jesse's personal affairs, but Larry knew that Jesse was currently seeing 2 women. Therefore, Larry suggested that Jesse choose one of the 2 women. Larry also advised Jesse to choose someone to accompany him from scratch. Jesse, who was tired and fed up with the advice, at that time Jesse also asked Larry to continue his advice the next day, because he was very tired. In fact, Jesse thought that Larry had never understood what it was like to have a baby girl. However, Larry only smiled faintly and said he did not have a baby girl, because now the girl is already 18 years old. Finally, Larry suggests to Jesse that if he wants to be serious with a woman, then Jesse should marry her immediately because she doesn't want to be hanged and waiting for Jesse forever. Jesse, who just found out that Larry has a daughter, immediately feels touched and thinks about marrying his girlfriend, because he wants to have a more serious relationship with her. Sure enough, the next day, Jesse immediately ended his relationship with Quinn. Jesse said that Quinn was a very kind and beautiful woman, but Jesse apologized because he had to end this relationship because Jesse already had a girlfriend and a baby. A few days later, Jesse is determined to leave for his girlfriend's hometown, and he plans to both apologize and marry his girlfriend. Arriving at Ruth's hometown, right in front of her house, Jesse felt very scared and broke into a cold sweat because he didn't have the courage to apologize, because he felt so guilty that he had cheated on her. At that time, all of Ruth's friends and family looked at Jesse and judged him as a jerk for betraying Ruth. But after listening to Larry's advice, Jesse bravely told Ruth that he was sorry and wanted to apologize for how he treated Ruth. Jesse also asked Ruth to marry him. But at that time Ruth was still angry with Jesse because he had cheated on her. So Ruth refused Jesse's proposal and said that she was just a village woman while Jesse was now successful and famous. But Jesse still wants to marry Ruth because she was the only woman who believed in him long ago when the whole world looked down on him. Ruth says that she used to want to marry Jesse, but now Jesse has changed and Ruth can't take it anymore. Even Ruth asked Jesse to get out of her house. Hearing that, Jesse immediately looked down and regretted what he had done. Jesse came out of that place and unexpectedly, it turned out that Jesse was waiting for Ruth until evening. Ruth, who knew that Jesse had been waiting for her all night, finally realized that Jesse was really serious about marrying her. Finally, at that time Ruth accepted Jesse's proposal, and a few days later, the two of them finally officially married. Furthermore, it is said that Jesse is now continuing to take part in competitions, and Jesse's name is increasingly famous in the United States. At that time, Jesse was ready to take part in the Olympics in Berlin to represent the United States, because at that time, Jesse was the fastest man in America. But everything did not go smoothly, because then there was a very great controversy about the Olympics. That was because the organizer of the Olympics was Germany, which at that time was still controlled by the Nazis. As we know, that the Nazis were very racist to black people and to Jews. And at that time, the Nazis did not allow black athletes to follow the games in the Olympics which were in Berlin. Until finally, there was a diplomat named Avery, who managed to negotiate with the Germans to allow black athletes to compete in the Olympics. Of course Jesse was very happy and he was determined to prove to the whole world that black people can also have achievements and win the competition. But one night, suddenly Jesse was visited by someone from the political leaders of the black struggle. At that time, that person asked Jesse not to go to Germany to compete, because in his view, if Jesse did not go to the Olympics, then Jesse would indirectly defend black people who have been ostracized in America and around the world. At that time Jesse was very confused, because participating in the Olympics was his dream since childhood and he hoped he could represent America in the Olympics. But Jesse realized, that person is one of the influential figures among black people in America. Hearing the news, Larry is furious with Jesse for assuming he wasted his chance to enter the Olympics. Larry is sure that Jesse will regret it someday. But Jesse said he was doing this to show his support for black unity. But Larry said that he didn't care about black people and white people, he thought everyone was the same. However, Jesse said that it was appropriate if Larry ignored the problem, because he was white and did not know what it was like to be black like Jesse. After that, Jesse immediately left Coach Larry. The next morning, Larry realizes that he was wrong to scold Jesse, because he doesn't understand Jesse's feelings. Finally, right then and there Larry apologizes to Jesse because he doesn't understand how much pressure the world is putting on him. But Larry warns Jesse that he is an athlete, and if Jesse gives up and doesn't try to enter this Olympics, then he will regret it for the rest of his life. And Larry asks Jesse to remember his words, that Jesse will never fail until he stops trying and gives up. Hearing the advice from his coach, Jesse was silent and pondered. Larry gives his advice, when life gives him hundreds of reasons to back down, then Jesse must show the world that he has a million reasons to keep fighting. Now, Larry leaves everything to Jesse, whatever Jesse's decision, Coach Larry will respect. After that, Larry leaves Jesse. A few days later, Jesse is met by one of the athletes named Peacock. He is the only person who managed to beat Jesse. At that time, Jesse asked Peacock, will he follow the Olympics in Berlin? Peacock just smiled faintly and he replied that he could no longer participate in the Olympics because he was injured and his career was over. And that's why Peacock met Jesse. He asked Jesse to go to Germany to prove to the Nazis that black people like them can also achieve achievements. Peacock apparently read a story in the newspaper stating that Jesse would resign. Peacock understands that Jesse is under a lot of pressure now, but that's life. Only two choices, decide to give up or keep fighting. Jesse was increasingly confused, and finally that night after, he asked his wife for advice, whether he should go or not. Ruth replied that she left everything up to Jesse, whatever decision he made, Ruth would support him. Jesse said that actually he really wanted to take part in the Olympics, but he was afraid of failing and losing and of course, everyone would see that indeed black people could not compete with white people. Ruth also said that God does not oblige us to always win, and defeat is not a sin, what matters is whether someone wants to try or not. Because of Ruth's words, Jesse finally decided to still go to the Olympics in Berlin. On the day of Jesse's departure for Germany, Jesse goes there by ship. Actually, at that time Jesse was still very doubtful. He also asked his coach, could he win in the Olympics, because he was very afraid of failing. Larry immediately convinced Jesse that he was the fastest and strongest man Larry had ever met and Larry was sure Jesse would win. Jesse's greatest enemy was not other people, but self-doubt. Finally, the day of the Olympics arrived. At the Olympics, Jesse took part in 3 athletics events. The first was short distance running, then the middle distance running, and the last was the long jump. At the start, Jesse took part in a short distance race. When he arrived at the stadium, Jesse was really surprised because there were so many people from all over the world, and all eyes were on him. Jesse was getting really nervous, but Jesse remembered that there were a lot of people relying on him right now. Not long after, finally the short distance race began. Incredibly, at that time Jesse won the short distance race. He broke the world record. At that time, Jesse immediately held his head, as if he couldn't believe that he had won a gold medal at the Olympics. Everyone there clapped for Jesse. The next day, Jesse takes part in a long jump competition. Among other competitions, the long jump was the most difficult for Jesse, because in that jump he met a German athlete named Luz Long, who had a European record, so his jump was the farthest at that time. The race starts, Jesse and Luz Long have a fierce match. Until finally, unexpectedly, it turned out that Jesse managed to beat Luz Long, and on that day, Jesse got his second gold medal at the Olympics. Luz Long went straight to congratulate Jesse, and he was surprised that Luz Long had been so nice to him. Jesse had always thought that everyone in Germany didn't like black people, but seeing Luz Long who was so kind, Jesse's eyes immediately changed. Then, in the evening, Jesse went to Luz Long's room to just chat casually. That night, Luz Long chats with Jesse. Luz Long told me that it turned out that the government held by the Nazis was really cruel. Luz Long asks Jesse to win all of his races, so he can prove that racism is not right. The next day, Jesse took part in his final race, which was the middle distance race. Jesse has been trusted by Luz Long and has also received the trust of many people, determined to bring 3 gold medals. The race started, and again Jesse managed to win the middle distance race and also broke the world record. At that time everyone appreciated and was proud of Jesse. It even turns out that, elsewhere, Jesse's family and Jesse's father are listening to the live radio for Jesse's race. Jesse's father, who knew that his son had succeeded in achieving his goals, felt very proud and did not expect that Jesse could make his nation proud. The next day, Jesse will take part in the last athletics competition, namely the relay race. In fact, at that time Jesse did not enter the relay race because he could not do it. But on that day, there was racism, where the German leader did not allow Jews to compete in that branch. Therefore, by force, the 2 Jewish athletes were not included in the competition. To replace the 2 athletes, Jesse and one of his friends took part in the competition. But at the time Jesse didn't want to, because Jesse felt that it should be a race of his friends. But in the evening, Jesse's 2 friends who were Jews said that they sincerely did not participate in the race and they left everything to Jesse. They hoped that Jesse could prove to Germany that Jesse also won the gold medal from this sport. Because of the trust from his friends, Jesse finally decided to take part in the relay race. The next day, the relay race begins. And that same day, Jesse managed to win the relay race and he got 4 gold medals at the Berlin Olympics. As a trainer, Larry feels very proud of Jesse. All Americans are proud of Jesse too. And in history, Jesse is recorded as one of the heroes of the American nation, because America has made America proud in the world. Jesse is also a proud hero for black people in America, because he managed to prove that black people can also achieve.